What is up, Ravens Flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome everyone to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell and of course DK in the back running the show. In this episode, we're going to discuss the ongoing search for the Ravens' next offensive coordinator. There's been quite a few interviews taking place at the Castle, so we'll update you on those who have been interviewed and also some other guys who are expected to be interviewed. But before we get started, take a second, hit the like button, click subscribe, and click the notification bell so we can keep you up to date on all your Ravens news. But Jimbo, where should we start in talking about the Ravens' search for their next OC?
Yeah, I tell you what, far and wide, Glenn, far and wide. That's what John Harbaugh said,
and
right?
near.
And close. He added that in, and I'll tell you what So let's just run down a list and let's start with near. John has interviewed two internal candidates, that being the quarterback coach for the Baltimore Ravens, James Urban. You guys all know him. If you watch, of course, any game, you see him sitting next to Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley or any other quarterback that we have. Along with the tight end coach, George Godsey. So those are two internal candidates that we have, just like DK popped up on the screen. As far as I know about the two of them, I don't know if I would be upset about a James Urban just because of his natural relationship with Lamar Jackson and our quarterbacks. But to complete out the list here, there's a few others. Dave Canale is, of course, the Seahawks passing game coordinator. Go ahead.
Hold on. Before we go jumping on, I gotta ask: is this the end of the internal?
Oh
candidates? I think T. Martin is what a guy I've been hearing is getting an interview at the very least. I've heard that that he's getting an interview. I haven't seen that it's taken place, but he was another one of the internal candidates that some people were hoping.
I think that was at the beginning of the season.
No, I'm still seeing it. And I'm still seeing that he's one of the expected internal candidates that they're going to interview. So he's a guy. Now, let me ask you this. You would really be okay with any internal, you'd be okay with that? Because,
well, look, I would be the one I would want if I had to choose between the internal guys is James Urban. I would be okay with James Urban because he has a relationship with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson feels comfortable with him. A lot of it has to just do with comfort as far as the internal candidates go. Lamar Jackson knows him well, knows his style, knows his
greatness doesn't happen when people are comfortable, Jimbo. Isn't that right?
Well, no, but no, what I mean is that they know each other's communication style. They know how to work with each other. He knows how to push Lamar. He knows how to stay in his head in a positive way. You know what I mean? He's been next to him. He's been the guy. And you can't blame him for the scheme. I don't know how much you can blame him for the scheme. So
what would be, I think DK proposes a pretty good question. Lamar did go out and hire his own private quarterback coach in the offseason.
And did bring him to camp, right?
And brought his ass to camp with him, which is interesting. I don't know. I think if we gave some truth serum to James Urban, he might not be thrilled about that part. But what would be the fan reaction, especially those which you already don't like John Harbaugh, if they hire an in-house candidate?
That would be, I knew it. I knew it, right? Like
his buddies. He's hiring his buddies.
Yeah. That's all it would be, for sure.
So that would be not something that would make the fans happy. So let's get into some external candidates, Jimbo.
Yeah, who honestly I think it's going to be. I don't think it's an internal guy that ends up getting hired.
No, I would be very surprised if they hire an internal guy. That would be, it would be stunning. Not to say that those guys don't deserve the job. I just don't think they're the right fit for this job right now. Let's get into some of the guys who have already either been requested or an interview has already taken place. So first of which we have the Rams passing game coordinator, Zach Robinson, who is obviously a member of the McVay tree, who is really turning out coaches left and right across the league, both at head coach and offensive coordinator. What's your thoughts on, do you have any thoughts on Zach Robinson? And
no, I mean, obviously we've seen what the Rams can do when what their offense can do, what their passing game can be when their guys are healthy. So that's all you can really base it off of, right? Because I'm not following Zach Robinson like I am the Ravens coaches. So outside of that, I mean, he's obviously worked under an innovative coach. I mean, that's it all really comes down to the how he answers the questions. But for me, I don't know. He's not my favorite one on this list.
Okay.
So yeah, he'd be a secondary candidate for me.
Yeah, and it's hard with us not being involved in hearing, the interview, seeing the pitch, but obviously what I notice about a lot of these guys is a lot of these guys are from a similar style of offense.
Yeah.
And I think you'll start to notice kind of a reoccurring theme here. All right, the next one, you mentioned him right before I cut you off to talk more about the internal candidates, was the Seahawks quarterback coach, Dave Canales.
Yeah, that's what you get for cutting me off.
Excuse me. Who's getting a lot of love right now because of really the resurgence of Geno Smith's career. I mean, this guy went from being certainly considered a backup at the very most and turned into a guy that broke franchise records for passing yards and completion percentage.
Dangerous.
That's right. So some are saying that Dave Canales deserves a ton of the credit for that kind of career turnaround for Geno Smith. What do you think about? Now they run more of a pro style offense, something.
Well,
similar.
Lamar Jackson. Did you see that retweet?
I did. He likes the pro style.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like Lamar Jackson in it. I mean, watch him in college. The dude was ridiculous. It was just a video game. As much as I know about video games, Lamar Jackson was living video game. So yeah, I like this one. This is one of my more preferred guys on the list. Now, let me give you a name, Glenn, and tell me how you're feeling about it. Also a passing game coordinator, Chad O'Shea, but from the Factory of Sadness, of course, that being the Brownies.
Yeah, so another off a similar tree, going to run a similar offense to what McVay and what Shanahan and all these guys are running. So I guess it just seems like everyone's going to this offense. So I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I think that was it last season? Was it last season or season before? His head coach for the Browns won Coach of the Year. So you think he's under tutelage of at least a guy who kind of understands what's going on and knows what he's doing. I guess I'm okay with it, but it doesn't get me like crazy excited. I mean, I'm okay with it because the reason I'm not crazy excited about that is, and a lot of these guys is that what's their play calling experience,
right?
But I guess some experience has to start somewhere. So I certainly understand that. But
great, you can be a guinea pig at the Ravens. That's what we want. Yeah,
that's kind of
but I understand what you're saying. But I think the next name will get you more excited. I know it certainly does for me, and that's Brian and Angelicio, the Vikings. Hopefully, I said that right. But the Vikings passing game coordinator as well. Yeah. Just seeing what the Vikings have done in the passing game, that in and of itself gets me excited. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking into him. He's spent 30 years coaching. He's been in the NFL since 2012. I like what he's done. I mean, I like what their offense did, especially when you consider they were doing it with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, who I think has some limitations. But, I mean, they also had talent everywhere on offense. I mean, they had, Thielen and Jefferson. They trade for Hawkinson. They have Cook in the backfield. I mean, they got talent at every single position. And they had some it's weird. They had like lulls of offense where they go a half and put up 3 points, and then the explosive offense where they put up 50 and a half. So but I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's another guy. I think their head coach over in Minnesota is a young guy, and so it would be an interesting hire, but I'm not opposed to it. How about you?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it just gets me excited at a surface level, understanding what that offense has been able to do in the air. If you can pair some semblance of that with some semblance of what we have left in the run game, obviously I don't think it's fair to expect, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong to say this, but I don't think it's not fair, but realistic to say, oh, our run game is just going to be the same with Greg gone. I think the offense is expecting that's not going to be the case, but obviously, if you can keep a large portion of that and add some of this passing attack that the Vikings have had, I mean, that's a scary proposition as long as you got the right guys to do it.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, if you want to ensure that some of that run game, doesn't get left behind, I know that some people are excited about the possibility of Justin Alton, who's the current offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, or at least was last time we saw him. He only took over play call duties, I believe, for the last 2 games of the season after Jerry Rossberg named head coach and they got rid of Nathaniel Hackett. And he took over for Clint Kubiak, I believe, was calling plays right before Justin Alton took over in Week 17. In Week 17, the Broncos did score 24 points against a motivated Chiefs team. They rushed for 117 yards, dangerous. Had three touchdowns, and in the final game of the season, they played against a Chargers team who played all their starters for some unknown reason. The Broncos scored 31 points in that game, ran for 205 yards on the ground, another 3-touchdown performance from Dangerous, and they totaled 471 yards. So while their offense looked horrible for the most part, when he took over, we did see a pretty incredible turnaround led by a strong run game, Jimbo.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a way for the Ravens to keep the identity, like John talked about, intact, right? So yeah, certainly that could be a good one. I didn't poo-poo it as much as other people weren't excited about it because the stain of the Broncos and things like that.
Yeah.
I honestly don't mind it. Now let's talk about a retread here, Glenn. What about Byron Leftwich? Of course, you guys all know Byron Leftwich, the OC of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are your feelings on old Byron Leftwich?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how much he is to blame for their fall off this season, but I think it's pretty clear that they were missing Bruce Arians when he left. And so while I think that the blame pie can be, kind of divvied out to a lot of different areas, including their banged up offensive line and their aging quarterback, I still don't know how much of the success you can give to Byron in years prior when Bruce Arians was there. So I'm kind of torn on what exactly is, Byron Leftwich involvement in the offense while Bruce was there, and then what's his blame in the downfall of the offense since Bruce left. I'm just so unsure about Byron. I really don't know. I like the fact that you'd be seeing things from a quarterback's perspective, a guy who's done it in the league and played in some pretty big games. But I just don't know how much was Bruce and how much was Byron, and then how much this past year was Byron, or how much was the team around him.
Yeah, how much of it, and you got to factor in Tom and all that too, right? Like, how much of it was
not getting
Tom
any
Brady
younger.
just saying, "Nah, dude, you're good. I'll take care of this one. You can just chill." So that's another one.
Now let me ask you this guy, Jimbo, because I'm curious about this guy. I see Eric Bieniemy is a guy that Ravens have interest in. So, what would be the motivation for Eric Bieniemy to make a lateral move to OC here in Baltimore? Is it simply to get out of the shadow of Andy Reid?
It has to be, right? To get out of the shadow of Andy Reid. And then, yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Maybe, the Ravens, I don't think they would do this to John, but they're lining up a successor.
Ooh.
Successor. There you go. I don't know, something like that. But Glenn, I've heard some bad things about Bieniemy and the way that he talks to, him and Pat got upset on the sideline. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that, but got into it on the sideline. Andy Reid had to break it up, and he seems to bark at these guys pretty hard, and that's something that I don't know how much of a fan I am of that.
Yeah, I do remember seeing their little dust up. I don't get the motivation too much from Bieniemy. Like it's a lot of risk to leave that what the Chiefs got going there. I mean, you could stick around there and be there for a long, long time, have a lot of playoff success, but you'll never get a chance as long as Andy Reid's there to be the head coach and get all the credit. So I see why he would leave, but man, if I was him, I would stick it out for a head coach job and not move laterally to another OC position. But that's just me. I get why you would want to, move away from being under the shadow, but it's a risky move. You're kind of betting on yourself, no doubt about it.
Definitely is.
You good, Jimbo?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, all right, cool. Just making sure. Because I do have a question for you.
Yep, go ahead.
How much of this OC search, how much of the decision on who they go with is based on who the Ravens have at quarterback and whether or not they think Lamar will be here, not just this year, but this isn't a hire the Ravens are making for one season. At least they're hoping this is going to be a hire that's going to be around for a little while. I mean, I know this is a year-to-year league, but how much do you think they're weighing on, well, Like, do they hire one guy if it's Lamar and another guy if it's not, or is it the same guy no matter who's under center in their eyes?
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at two perspectives. You look at one from the way John wants to recruit to simply get the best guy.
Yeah.
And then you look at the other from being strategic, right? And then really quickly, actually, before I answer that question, we got to throw Frank Reich's name into this, right?
Yeah.
That is my favorite name. I'm sticking to that. I like that name. I think he's the most seasoned guy. He's led a team.
He won't be here long though, right? Like even if he does decide to come here, it's no way it's longer than a year unless it's a complete disaster offensively.
Right. No, absolutely.
So you're back to searching again next year.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, you want the best guy. You just want the best guy. You know what I mean? Like that to me is what it is at the end of the day. But what I was going to say to answer your question is, I think that if this is the way I would answer that question, Glenn, is if you feel like the guy that you're interviewing cannot handle and be one of the best coordinators available for your team in either scenario, he's not the right guy. You just cross him off the list. Like that's the way you have to go through it, right? Because I do think that theoretically, like there might be some differing in weighing of strengths depending on what the scenario is, but ultimately I don't know how much we know what the scenario will be. And so the true tell on whether or not a guy is good for the job is whether or not he can handle the change. Because one thing that's consistent in the NFL is change, right? Like so I know I'm kind of straddling the fence here, but like that's how I would do it in my head and say, okay, let's put this guy in this scenario where it's not Lamar Jackson. Let's put this guy in my mind in this scenario where it is Lamar Jackson. Does he check all the boxes on both sides? And if he doesn't, I don't know if I can hire him.
Well, but if you're the Ravens front office, are you still building this team around, like, are you still focused on, all right, I'm building this team around the talents of Lamar Jackson, and this hire is a part of that? Or is it just, I have a philosophy on offense, whether Lamar's under center or anyone else is under center, and I need to hire this OC to fit that?
Yeah, I say you go, philosophy. If you have to choose, like, in a vacuum, you go with Lamar Jackson, because at the end of the day, you can always fire him and get another OC, right? Like, you can always just get another guy. That's
true.
It's not that they're just, they grow on trees, but my point is that if Lamar leaves and you're really getting to this point, you don't think the guy can do the job, there's always someone else out there that could at least fit the role better. But I think you get the guy who's best for Lamar Jackson is, I think, what would be a higher priority in my scenario. While it's not an ideal scenario, I think that's the best scenario.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the decision they have to make. Is it a hire that is just the philosophy we want to have here in Baltimore for however long John's the head coach, or is it and Eric DeCosta is the GM, or is this, man, we still need to not only build around Lamar Jackson to make sure we take most advantage of his talent and make this push, but also to make sure he's happy enough to want to stay long term. I wonder if some of this hire is to entice him to stick around, or if they'll know. It's just so much of this is like dependent on one thing or the other. Like, are they going to use the OC to try and entice him to stick around, or are they going to resolve the Lamar situation before? Gosh, there's so much that needs to happen. It's just like, what's the first domino and when does it fall?
Well, no, absolutely. It's the next couple weeks. I mean, buckle up, right? Because it's going to happen fast, whatever happens between the hiring and the tagging and the, any, not that I want it to happen, and I'm almost hesitant to say this word, but any trading or anything like that, it's going to happen quickly. But Glenn, I got to know from you, what's your gut telling you? Does your gut give you some sort of an indicator on one of these guys, a couple of these guys?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of these young up and coming guys. I think it's going to be kind of similar in the McDonald. Like, a lot of people were worried when they hired McDonald, especially because it was kind of like an internal hire without actually being one. And I think a lot of people were worried that they were going to have, oh man, this is going to be another, Wink, replacement. He's going to be doing the same thing, 0 blitzes with no corners and putting guys on islands and getting exposed. He was a lot different than Wink. He ran a lot of different schemes than what Wink did here. He was not nearly as aggressive with the blitzing that we saw from Wink Martindale. So I think what we're going to see is a young guy. I'm not so sure we're going to see a retread of Frank Reich, because I don't know how interested the Ravens want to hire a guy who they think is certainly going to be gone next season. So I think they go with one of these young guys, whether it's Brian Angelicio or Chad O'Shea or maybe Zach Robinson. I've seen, some people predict, who is it? The quarterback coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
That's his name. Bobby Slowick is another guy from the 49ers, the passing game coordinator. Joe Brady, who's the Bills' current QB coach, also was the LSU passing game coordinator in 2019 when they won. I think that was when they won their title. There's a lot of, I think that's what it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a Byron Leftwich, Frank Reich. I don't think it's going to be anybody who's been an OC before. I think this will be a first-time OC who's a young guy who's hungry to work hard and see what he can do with. I mean, a lot of people are wondering, like, how can they just change philosophies? They built this whole team to fit the philosophy and play style of Greg Roman's offense. Man, I feel like this offensive line can do anything you want them to do. They're big, they're athletic, they can move you. What can't this offensive line do?
Yeah.
What can't these tight ends do? You tell me what Josh Oliver, Josh Oliver turned himself into a blocker. He can still run. I mean, Mark Andrews is all world. Yeah, you need some receivers, but offensively, that's all you need. And these guys can play, in my mind, in any system.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I will say, though, my feeling is different. It's funny. I hope this doesn't come off as ageists, right? Like ageism is not a thing here. And it's funny because DK put this in our chat as well. Like, then both coordinators. So think about this. If both guys are 35, right? Mm-hmm. That means that combined, they will only be 10 years older than John Harbaugh combined. So basically be having his children in the coaching, in the coaching room every morning.
Worked out
right?
good with McDonald. Plus, he doesn't come off as a child.
No. But you see what I'm saying, right? Like, not that they would be
guys.
childish, but yeah. So I think that John has hit his quota for young coaches. And he might want a grizzled vet that he can kind of like, all right, take this thing and run with it. Not that John's not involved, but I do feel like he tends to be a bit more involved in the defense than he is in the offense. Not that he's not involved, right? But anyway, I don't know if I see two young guys. Just not that age is a real thing here, but I don't know. For some reason, I feel like I'm just feeling Frank Reich. I think he's going to get through this round. I think he's been requested for a couple head coaching interviews.
I think he gets a job, dude.
I think this will be like the Kerry Kubiak thing.
Okay.
Remember when Kubiak kind of came back here and it kind of resuscitated his career.
It did. He had the headache issues that he was going through before.
And remember how grateful he was to come to Baltimore?
Yeah, he loved it.
Yeah, and just was able to focus on what he loved about football. And then just
but that means I just don't see he doesn't get a job. I don't see how he doesn't get a job, dude. I think he gets a head coach gig. There's so many head coaching jobs out there, and who's a better candidate? Sean Payton, maybe. I'll give you Sean Payton. He's a better candidate. But who's better than him?
Things didn't end well in Indy, man. They just, know what I mean? You got to have recency bias, and people are really like, dude, what happened?
Yeah.
So, and Jim Caldwell was the same situation. Well, very similar situation to Kubiak.
Is there anybody who that I read or we talked about that you don't want for sure?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want Godsey. I don't want Godsey, the tight end coach from the Baltimore Ravens. No offense to him, but like,
our tight ends have made was one of our best units.
Sure.
I mean, look at the turnaround Josh Oliver's made in his career.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just not feeling it.
I
just don't want anything. I mean, look, just like you said, I feel like that guy might be a more contributing factor to any sort of scheme than even the quarterback coach in some sense. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that one. So that's one I don't want. I also don't want the Browns guy just because he's coaching the Browns. And like,
now, just to give you a little background on Godsey, he was the Houston Texans OC from 2015 or for 2015 and 2016. That's not good. And he was the co-offensive coordinator in 2021 for the Miami Dolphins.
Hey, what?
Who their staff got fired.
Yeah. So no, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right.
I'm glad he's got a job. He's probably happy collecting a paycheck. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I just so that those guys and then Bieniemy, I just don't. That reaction was just so telling to me. It would be no coming back from that for me. It would be hard for him to win me over in an interview because Pat doesn't seem like the type of guy that gets like he's not a guy to easily incite.
No, he doesn't seem like a guy. Yeah, he seems like a pretty easygoing guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want any I'll tell you what, I don't want any in-house hires. I don't want Eric
Mhm.
Bieniemy, and I don't want any guy who I think is looking to just simply use us as a launching point to go be a head coach next year. So that, and even though I think Frank Reich won't be a factor, I think he'll be off the market. But that's also another reason why I don't want Eric Bieniemy, because he's not looking. If he is coming here, he's not looking to be here very long. He's looking to make a one stop and then be a head coach somewhere else very, very quickly, or else he's not leaving Kansas City unless that's
Yeah.
the plan. So I don't want anyone using this as a launching point. I don't want any in-house hires. And so, yeah, I'm hopeful for the youth movement. Let's get some young
All
blood
right.
in here, innovation. Let's get some stuff we haven't seen before. I want to have an offense that schemes guys wide, that schemes guys open on occasion, that complements their that has a passing game that complements their run game,
Mhm.
that doesn't abandon either. I don't have a lot of
Let's
requests
just
here,
get JT
Jimbo.
O'Sullivan. Let's get him in at OC. Let's get him in over there. He talked about the harmonious offense is what we need. He seems like he's got his finger on the pulse, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I don't know if we could get him away from his YouTube gig. He's probably doing okay.
I'm sure he'd take a job with the Baltimore Ravens to hop off
You think
YouTube.
so? All right.
Yeah,
he
I think
might do that.
he would take it and not.
What about what's the guy on TV all the time? Orlovsky. This guy talks a big game. Let's see him get on the sidelines and hold a clipboard.
Nah, yeah, well. He's probably making more money than someone is off YouTube.
He's
So
probably killing it right now.
yeah, no, he just said that Joe Burrow is better than Patrick Mahomes, so his judge of talent is yeah, that in and of itself would disqualify me for disqualify him in my mind to get the job.
Yeah, I think I would. What's your thoughts with Brian Johnson, the QB coach? I look at what Jalen Hurts, has done
Oh,
this
right.
year.
Yeah.
As good as he's looked,
Yeah.
he's a guy that I think, could be someone that, that the Ravens should certainly have on their radar and interview.
Yeah, agreed. And John, of course, knows the guys up in Philly. I mean, not that the coaching staff is anything the same, but certainly he knows the culture, knows, what that organization is about and things like that. I think that matters. Things like this matter. They're close by. Like, I know these guys will take any job for promotion, but all of it just makes it easier, right? And increases the likelihood. So yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it either. Philly is a dope city, so that matters.
I wonder, yeah, I wonder how long this, like, what's the first domino? Is it start the head coaching dominoes start to drop? Like, what's the
I
thing
think
everything's waiting on?
Dan Quinn is, I think, going to be a big name that's got to fall. Kind of see Sean Payton, obviously, is another one to see that one go as well. I think once those two go, I think you start to see more things happen. But I don't think the Ravens wait around for long either. I think they just want to do their due diligence.
Yeah, well, certainly. But
the
I
right
do think
guy.
it's just like the big time free agent name.
Sure.
That's a player. It's like you're all waiting for one guy to
you
sign, and
gotta
then boom,
break the
boom, boom,
dam.
boom, boom. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So it'll be interesting to see which one is the first to drop. I guess it would be. I think it's going to be Sean Payton.
Yeah, the only thing that I think could slow up the process with Sean Payton in comparison to Dan Quinn is that they've got to give up some compensation. It's got to be a trade.
Yeah, that's
I think
true.
that's the only thing that could slow it up. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, as far as you're talking dominoes to fall, it would make sense that sequentially or chronologically it is Sean Payton, but logistically that could make it a little tricky. I think he ends up with the Chargers.
Well, apparently they're keeping Staley.
Oh shoot, you're right. What am I?
They fired their offensive staff and kept Staley. I don't get it.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't get it at all. And then also we got to see what Mike McCarthy, what happens with him in Dallas if Sean Payton's there. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a wait and see right now. We're going to keep monitoring the list of guys the Ravens have both requested, and of course the guys that they are actually interviewing. We'll keep you up to date on all the news, and we're just waiting on that first domino to drop, like all you guys. But let us know in the comments below who you're hoping for, but more than just who you're hoping for, because it's tough. Some of these guys, we don't really know what their pitch is. We don't know what their plans or ideas are. So even if it's just some of your ideas, like what are you hoping to see? What are some things you definitely don't want to see? Are there some candidates you definitely don't want to see hired here? And then, what are you looking for in your next OC? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll talk soon.
See ya.
Yesterday does not matter. You're looking forward to today.
I'm looking forward to being a Raven.
What are they getting?
Everything out of me. They're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that.